the INR file, sorry.
It's okay. Hey guys, we're live across Canada and around the world. Thanks so much for joining us with our all-star panel. Stephen, James, Mike, and Mel, our usuals, and our special guest, Felix Böck from Chop Value. Did I say your name right, Felix?
Yeah, you did almost. You just asked me where I'm from. I'm from Bavaria, Germany. So to all the Germans or Austrians watching, they would probably pronounce my last name Böck, but it doesn't.
Böck. Can you say something to all the Germans watching, and maybe like a hi and
Sure. Well, grüß dich miteinander. Ich bin aus dem Allgäu. I'm actually from the southern part of Germany. That's what I just said, and I live in Vancouver, running a small company called Chop Value.
Perfect. So tell us a little bit about Chop Value. I'm going to try to pull some info for Chop Value.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I moved to Vancouver around 6 years ago, initially to do my PhD on bamboo research, and my friends and family just made fun of me why I would study bamboo in Canada, and being a carpenter by trade and a woodworker by heart. I left academia to start a circular economy startup called Chop Value, where we recycle millions and millions of chopsticks and turn them into new beautiful home decor and new design materials.
Very cool. So I'm just going to pull up your site. If you want to let us know what kind of, where did you guys start with, like, the products for Chop Value? What did you start with? What kind of stuff are you doing now?
Yeah, so I think the innovation started really on trying to start a business with as little as possible. So imagine you can actually start a viable business by making chopsticks only. That was kind of that inspiring moment where I thought, hey, I think we can actually lead by example to show how much waste we have in our cities. So the first products we made were these hexagon tiles and hexagon shelves, and that was pretty much just a way of showing how much value you can add through engineering and good design. And today we make, from conference room tables to desks for your home, all the way to restaurant tables. We make everything where engineering and good design matters.
So, and you guys sell a franchise business. Is that what I understand as well?
That's right. Yeah, and this is where Trotec comes into play, because after I've proven the model in the first year in business, we actually now franchise the entire concept, where we open micro factories in local communities, where we all the way go from the unutilized resource, from the chopstick, all the way to the end product. And personalization or customization for our end consumers are a really, really important factor. So the boards that you see here in these pictures, they would be engraved or laser cut at the very, very end step with a Trotec laser, who we partnered up with, I think, almost a year ago as a global expansion partner. So all franchises over the world will have standardized a Trotec laser in their microfactory.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Guys, do you have any questions for Felix while I'm actually going through all these really cool products?
I have a question. Like, how many chopsticks can you gather from can you recycle? Like, these are recycled chopsticks.
Yeah. So, James, I always, when we talk to investors or clients, I always say this is the 100 billion chopstick business opportunity. So we don't count dollars, we count chopsticks. So every week we currently recycle around 350,000 chopsticks that we are then going through in our.
And that's in Vancouver or all of BC, or?
That's per city. The microfactory is designed for production capacity that you can turn over 100,000 chopsticks per day. And if you collect more, then when you expand to cities like New York, Los Angeles, Tokyo, Taipei, and so on, you can imagine the scale is unlimited.
Yeah, and it like you can you have like multiple in one city? I imagine somewhere like New York would have like millions of chopsticks in a day.
Yeah, we look at the size of the metropolitan area, but then we also look at the market size for products, because it always depends on what you want to offer and what you think you can actually introduce to the market. So New York would probably have the capacity for 5 to 6 microfactories that can be independently run as franchises.
Cool.
So Felix, how many franchises do you have right now?
So we are pretty young as a business. We just launched a franchise concept like globally in February to all our partners, and we got a lot of leads in. But then maybe you've heard this little pandemic hit. So
yeah, I heard something about that.
So we obviously have to now pretty time sensitive when it comes to following up with our franchise leads on how they're feeling, how they're doing. Do they still feel healthy in terms of financial commitment to start a franchise? Because to us, it's really important that we start on the right foot with everyone to run their own viable, sustainable business, and not just like that short-term opportunity. So it's about the long-lasting success rather than opening 100 at once.
Yeah, makes sense.
So, and I mean, you mentioned a little bit about COVID. What was kind of the biggest takeaway now is just I know in Vancouver it's not necessarily as bad as Ontario, or especially in the US. Are you guys kind of back in production in British Columbia?
Well, we actually the biggest learning for us and for our clients was how relevant all of a sudden local manufacturing has become. So obviously, when you look at that video, we have these beautiful, sustainable home decor products. But what we also do, and what we now shifted a lot in, is just reacting to the market needs. And I think this is the strength of that local microfactory concept, where you use local resources, uninterrupted supply chain, and you can still make money while doing that. So, of course, the pandemic had slowed us down in March and April quite significantly, but now that we are adapting, we had no layoffs, and we're actually hiring right now. That's how busy we are in our facilities.
Cool.
And how do you guys even price this stuff? I mean, it's such a unique product that obviously you don't really have any direct competitors.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys? You don't have to obviously give away any trade secrets here, but I mean,
no, the trade secret, Lev, is community. Because when we started the business, the biggest vision was the restaurants that recycle with us should be able to afford to buy back the end product. So imagine a chopstick gets collected and recycled from that business restaurant, and we can go full circle and can provide them with restaurant tables. That's literally the beginning of our business model, where we said we have to hit that $300 to $500 table, so that the restaurant owner doesn't see this as a designer or handcrafted single item. They want to order 20 of these tables to make circular economy the norm.
Mm-hmm. And I know people were asking this week when they saw the podcast promotion if you guys actually sell the plates to the public, to laser users.
You mean the raw material?
The raw material plates.
Yeah. Well, I know it's a very unique material to play with, but the concept of circular economy is, for us at least, to make this a viable business, is to go all the way to the end product. So we would probably always at least go to a semi-finished material that would then be able to be processed on a laser. Otherwise, you're not creating enough value or enough value add in the process to make it, feasible to run a business. So we wouldn't be in a position to sell raw material in scale like a plywood sheet at Home Depot. We would want to go to the end product control the design, the brand, and the use of it.
What is your top seller?
The top seller?
Yeah, not sure.
So believe it or not, but until recently, it was the one product that everyone told me doesn't solve a problem and is never going to be a good product. It's that home decor behind me, because it's kind of that conversation starter where many people want to tell their friends and family, hey, I have 3,000 chopsticks on my wall. Can you believe it? But I think we're slowly transitioning, especially over the last quarter. We sold a lot of height adjustable desks and work from home essentials, that are slowly taking over the best sellers, at least by volume and quantities.
Mm-hmm. And where does the laser come in this case? I mean, it's obviously, we see that like the engraving emblems and stuff. How do you? I don't see any burnt edges on the wood. So how do you guys go around that? Do you use the laser to cut it, or what do you guys do?
Both. So we use the laser to cut it, but the biggest value creation for the Trotec laser for us is actually the personalization on scale. So we always call it like we tell our customers they don't have to worry about purchasing 100,000 or 10,000 units from us. Every single piece can be customized because you're talking with us directly, local, without mostly without time difference. And you can collaborate on the designs so that it's really, really yours at the end. Versus if they want, for example, a customized retail display to store their sunglasses or to their cosmetics, which some of our customers are, they would need to buy 10,000 units from Asia to make the project feasible, and maybe have a few design changes along the way that they can't change anymore. Because they had to commit to a huge minimum order quantity. This is where I think the customization through our Trotec laser just really, really makes sense. And what I love is these reactions of when you can create a very, very crisp design on our products because the material is so dense. So, think of that city skyline that you just saw on the picture, or like engraving of names for weddings. That's always that wow moment when they touch and see the material and they see that crisp design. That's pretty cool.
No, it looks amazing. I mean, what a unique concept. Oh, wow. Actually, I wanted to ask about this product. Like, this was the coolest thing I've ever seen. That cube. Can you tell us more about that? What is this?
Yeah. So sometimes we get challenged that a story travels far when you create art with it. So we wanted to create a piece that represents circular economy. But since our designs are very, very straight-lined and very, very timeless and simplistic, like even our circular economy art piece is a cube. So it's kind of ironic. But that cube is created out of 100,000 chopsticks, which represents one day in Vancouver.
Wow.
So one day of chopsticks that otherwise would end up on the landfill. So it's been initiated by a collaboration with Griffon Development. They are based here in Kerrisdale in Vancouver, and they have a little art gallery, which I really recommend to drop by. And that cube is right at the window, so you can actually walk by. You don't have to go inside and see that beautiful piece.
Is that acrylic right here? What is this?
Yeah, we were cutting an acrylic, a white acrylic for the letters. So we have usually no problem cutting through material that is not our expertise by just setting up the laser in their standard settings that we got set up. And then we applied the letter because the white in combination with our material color is actually always a beautiful contrast.
That's amazing. Actually, that was going to be one of my questions. Like, what materials, or is there plans to combine other materials, not just ready-made like the metal tables that you guys make, but well, in this case, obviously you've used acrylics, but this is like a standalone. Is there plans to do dual products with other laser cut products like acrylic or plastics, or even like leather, let's say? Is there anything like that in the works?
Yeah. So we looked into leather actually, but that's that would be very unique custom projects where we have high-end clients that we worked in through fashion or fashion packaging. When we work with our retail clients for displays or retail units, we often combine it with acrylics, some biodegradable plastics, or 3D printed components that need a few other cuts at the end for customization. Yeah, and then we combine it also with metal. There's also, I'm actually not familiar what the term is there. There's some imitation materials that look like metal that we're using often for plaques or awards that we are cutting and engraving.
Rolls.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that is trolleys.
Yes, it is.
So those will be the materials we combine with our material that I believe give a really nice contrast to that caramelized brown color that we have.
That must be heavy, Felix?
Sorry?
100,000 chopsticks must be heavy.
Oh,
I'm curious how heavy that thing is. It looks like a chopstick test rock.
Yeah, it's a Death Star. Yeah, it was. So the funniest was when we delivered the cube to the art gallery. There was a little miscommunication, so we probably just assumed they have a loading bay, or maybe we just assumed that our art gallery is kind of a larger facility. So we had to actually remove the window in the front to even get it in there. Wow. With 4 or 5 people lifting it inside and putting it on its corner to balance it out. So the steel tube on the bottom felt very, very soft. Wow. Its weight. So.
Sorry, James.
Have you ever tried to make chopsticks with Chop Value product? Like from the end grain or something.
I know what you're asking, because we're getting that question every day.
Sorry,
but mostly by people who really love the product and have actually seen and touched it. Because the moment you see the new quality of that material, you're completely forgetting that those are actually used chopsticks, right? But yeah. The initial thought for the broader audience is, I'm not sure if there's maybe a hesitation of reusing used recycled chopsticks and then making them re-enter your mouth, even though they're super sanitized and like all the contaminations are gone through our production process of a lot of heat, steam, and pressure. I would still be hesitant in making chopsticks at the end again.
Okay.
Interesting. And I wanted to ask, you guys have a web store. Is like 100% of the items come from the web store in terms of sales, or is there some kind of partnerships that you guys would do the sales with? How does that work?
We have a lot of B2B direct partnerships that work with us on larger and customized orders. So the web is definitely one really simple path of not only getting in touch with us but also shopping our products. But the customization, even when you click through these pictures right now, it's 80% of what we do is reacting to someone's sustainability vision of replacing their existing designs with a very, very unique material that we would then custom make for them.
That's very cool. I guess that's most of my questions. Guys, do you have more questions for Felix before we get into the panel discussion?
No, I think there's a lot of questions from people now.
Yeah, there's an interesting question that we're bringing up, and I guess we can discuss it here. Good morning from Miami, Florida. I don't want to start a bad discussion, but my only question is the following. I have a Glowforge Pro, and I wanted to know the pros and cons between Glowforge and Trotec. So obviously, we're very biased towards what we say here because we all work for Trotec. Before we kind of get the discussion going, we don't want to necessarily badmouth one company over the other, obviously. we can say where we excel as Trotec. But I mean, let me ask Felix, why did you not go? Not why didn't you go with the Glowforge, but why did you guys choose Trotec for your business?
So from a customer perspective, so I'm an engineer. So when I started the business, I needed to start it. I bootstrapped it, and when you bootstrap a business, you know, the upfront investment is very, very crucial versus the spending you have repairing stuff and the time you waste in repairing bad equipment. So I also made a bad choice at the beginning. I started with a like almost DIY version of a laser just to get the customization going. But I think a year into the business, we already made our research and looked at, okay, who is not only market leader, but also has a global representation, which was a requirement for us for the franchising business, plus the customer service. And, you know, I actually don't know the Glowforge. So you probably need to get a bit more technical here, but for us, the most important was customer service globally represented for our franchise expansion that made us decide to go with Trotec.
No, that's a great point. I mean, if you're starting a business and you see that kind of end results, I mean, we have 3 sales guys here that can tell you. So I'll stop speaking. What do you guys would say? First of all, go ahead, Mike.
I'd probably just say that the biggest difference, as we see from you could almost make the same argument, you know, with a small, even one of our small lasers, is that the Glowforge is not a production machine, and the Trotec is a production machine. And I think that's probably the most critical change between the two.
What specifically is it? Speed? Is it quality?
I'm just talking. Yeah, no, I'm talking throughput. It could be a bit of quality too, but I think the biggest issue is throughput, right? It's a glass tube versus an RF excited tube. So, you know, there's always going to be, you know, differences in movement speed there between the two. I think the Pro is only a 45 watt system. So 45 watts. So I think, you know, again, you know, for some people it's a way to start the business. You know, we would normally make the case to say, well, you know, if you're going to start a business, then get something that's going to be production oriented. Because I always say to people, it's like buying a new computer. It always looks fast when you get it, but when you're sitting there, you know, and something takes 10 minutes when it could maybe have taken 4 minutes, it becomes pretty difficult. Because if you really break down your production and you say, well, you know, I need to produce X amount of units a day, you know, the more you can produce, the more money you can make. So potentially, right? So I think, you know, the Glowforge is given lots of marketing in the industry, and I think it's got people looking at laser machines.
Yeah.
But that would be my argument right now. I mean, I could make a lot of other arguments, but I think that for me, that's really the biggest argument that somebody has to take.
Can you go into the specifics? I think for people who don't know the difference between glass tubes, RF tubes, ceramic tubes, metal tubes, what is, like, specifically, why would one be better than the other?
Well, like, yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say a glass tube just doesn't have the same firing. I always sort of liken laser tubes when it's trying to explain it to people. It's like a light switch on the wall. And so when we ask the laser machine to fire, we're flicking the light switch on your wall. And then what we're doing is, when we need to have it come back down to its resting state, that's like turning the light switch off. So on a glass tube, that switch can only be turned on at a certain rate. An RF excited tube can be turned on at a faster rate, so we can fire the laser faster. So we can traverse across.
Kind of like the difference between a fluorescent tube and an LED or something, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's just that response time that needs to be there, and it's not there. So if you're if you're traversing across an XY bed, you can only start, stop at a certain amount of rate, and the RF excited tube, which is what we sell, will move will go up and down faster. So we can go across faster. So you can, if that arc is like this, you've got to wait to go down here, because if you go too fast, then the image will start shifting as you move across, right? Because you don't have that faster response time that you would normally have on an RF. There's failure rates. The glass tube is cheaper, but it fails faster. The RF tube is more expensive, but it lasts a lot longer. Typically, RF tubes can run at 110 versus 220. I believe the Glowforge is only running at 110. That's that smaller 40-watt source. So again, that's, there's no difference really there. Stephen, you can probably throw some things in there too if you want. I think the biggest problem, as we talked about yesterday, is the danger level of changing tubes. There are issues, of discharge. I believe you're carrying 8 kilovolts of energy in some of the bigger tubes, so glass tubes. So again, you have to be careful on that. You've got water circulating on, maybe not on the Glowforge, but on an RF tube. A lot of times there's a lot more latent heat, so you got to get rid of that energy. So that has to be done by water circulation. So again, those things, you have to be careful on that, because now you've got water with exposed 220 power. So you have to be very careful on that. So Stephen, you may want to add something?
Just before Stephen adds, for JC Productions, the person that raised this question, if you can, they have a Glowforge. They're saying that they're cutting ear savers and face shields on it. Sorry, I think I read that right, that they have a Glowforge. If JC, if you can, let us know, how long does it take you to cut an entire bed of ear savers on a Glowforge, roughly, and like what materials you're using? I'll let Stephen answer. Stephen, I think your mic's muted. Stephen?
His speakers are muted too.
Okay. Can you hear us, Stephen?
No, my mic's just my mic. Anyway, look, Mike covered that right, but there are safety concerns, serious safety concerns. But what wasn't covered is with the glass tubes, other than the safety in terms of performance, is the beam characteristics. Your beam characteristics on a glass tube are very different to the other technologies. So the quality in that respect, in terms of the end engraving result, is a significant difference. So it's difficult to compare the two technologies, because the beam width and the beam shape is significantly different on a glass tube.
Mm-hmm. And not many people know this, or I guess half the people know this, but Trotec actually has a metal tube RF laser for about the same price as a Glowforge Pro. I mean, it's some people are like, they feel so good about buying this inexpensive laser, and then they realize, I probably could have got a Trotec. And what this means for them is that if they're buying the small Trotec version, the software is going to be very close to the same when they finally build their business up to get a speedy laser. And then when they have speedy lasers like Felix has, now we're helping them build their business up to get a very large format, like a SP machine, one of our large cutting machines. And so starting out with a machine that has only one product and not being able to upgrade through a family of products, it doesn't make sense when you can get like our small Ray Jet. There he is. Hey, little buddy.
Yeah. So not a lot of go ahead, James. Sorry.
Yeah. So then you get that. You're using the same software. You're talking with the same people. You're getting the same marketing help with a small laser that you will with the bigger units. And so you can keep growing with that and not have to sort of restart your entire focus once you get a new, more professional product.
So Felix, just a question for you. I mean, how much were you looking at when you were doing your research in terms of tubes. How important was that to you guys?
For us, it was really just the determinant factor on maintenance and lifetime, because we were planning to ramp up to run this laser at least. Like we try to actually utilize it 8 hours a day, but if we run 2 shifts, right now we have it running 16 hours a day.
Wow.
Cool. So we can't really afford to leave the tube conversation out of the picture when we make our choice there, because you can't upgrade in the middle of scaling. You know, like you have other problems at that point.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Hey, Lev, just to promote the Rayjet a little bit, every Wednesday we do have a design challenge webinar. So if people wants to learn more about the Rayjet, that's probably best to tune in.
Thanks, Mel. That's a great point. We're every Wednesday at 11 this time. We basically have a webinar like this. It's more free flowing. We basically try to create a simple product every single week. I believe next week we're doing cake toppers, and we want to show a little bit of the design element, a little bit on selling on Etsy, how much you would buy it and sell it. So tune into that every Wednesday on YouTube and Facebook. So that's good. I'll see if I have.
this JC guy sounds like a pretty amazing guy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Look,
we got. I'm just gonna cut this. Sorry. Right now, it's taking me 25 minutes to cut a full sheet of acrylic 1/8 inch and cut 80 ear savers in 25 minutes. I have cut over 5,000 ear savers. You're right. If I have to start engraving, and then he continues saying, as a blind person, I wish to use a Trotec. I really want to showcase the world that as a blind person, I could do much more than just 3D printing. Speedy 100 looks amazing, and I would love to start. And then he goes on, I would love to start cutting fabric that you guys created for masks. So thanks so much, JC.
Where is he based out of?
He's Miami, Florida.
Miami,
Okay.
Florida.
Yeah, so
That's
you
amazing,
guys,
JC. Good job, buddy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really wow. Well, what do you guys say to that for in terms of a Glowforge taking 25 minutes to cut? Do you guys know the bed size for Glowforge? I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's around the size of a Rayjet. I mean, the Rayjet's what? They're 13 by 19.
18 by 12.
Cuttings,
12 by 18.
Yeah, 12 by 8. I mean, cutting 45 watts. I mean, when it comes to cutting, they're going to be fairly similar.
Mm-hmm.
If you're cutting like 1/8 inch material, you're running fairly slow to begin with, so you're not really getting a speed advantage on in that type of scenario. If you're cutting thinner, then there may be some differences in movement speed of the machine. I don't know if there'd be too much different. How much? Again, we haven't seen the artwork, and we don't know how big the ear saver is. He's doing 80, so I guess we could sort of say it's about 1/3. I'm thinking 1/2, 1/3. What I'm thinking.
It's
That
close
type
to
of size. So.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we can move on. We have a bunch of priority questions here. We got Trevor from Cole Harbour, Nova Scotia, Canada. Are there any plans to offer on-site technical service for those of us that are not near a Trotec office and may need our machines tuned up from time to time? So that's a really good question. Sorry, Stephen, your mic's on mute again. You're just getting echoes. If you want to unmute yourself. Stephen, so I know in terms of the plans for on-site service, we do offer web service for tune-ups and to technical calls. Can you expand a little bit on that? If somebody's far away from a Trotec location.
Look, most of our calls can be, and any issues that customers reach out to us for can be solved remotely on Trotec machines. So it's very seldom that on-site service would be required. There are state situations where a technician would need to be on board, but even there we will enlist the customer where it's safe to do a lot of the work too for area that is as far as that. But if need be, yes, we can get a technician out there, but it's an exception rather than the rule, because most issues, as I said, can be solved remotely. Most preventative maintenance, even for remote areas, the customer can reach out to us, and Trevor can ask us what we recommend in terms of doing a PM in the absence of us.
Now, do we still? Or I mean, I know out west here we do these preventative maintenance tours where we try to get as many people in a certain area as possible and send the tech out on a week-long voyage. Does that happen out east too?
For that, yeah.
Yeah, we started. Well, I mean, it's a little bit on hold now because of COVID for safety concerns. But yeah, the plan is as soon as lockdown is lifted, that we'll try to do these kind of preventive maintenance tours, province by province.
Because it's really just PM that's the issue. Although a customer can look after their machine themselves, it's nowhere near what a qualified tech could do. And so the service tours, as we call them, will be coming, and as Lev says, after the pandemic, so that you get that great service. But in terms of software issues, even a lot of electronic issues are solved remotely. COVID or no COVID, it's just the nature of Trotec lasers that they're geared for remote service. But when we need a qualified set of hands on the machine, we have the tours that we will announce once the dust settles. And in the meantime, we'll keep everyone posted.
Perfect. We have Smilj from Germany, Felix, one of your countrymen, was asking face shield video, how to adjust the size of frame more flexible. Before we go into the adjustment, I guess we could discuss the PPE. I know a lot of customers in Canada, US, around the world are actually moving to PPE production. I was going to ask Felix, have you guys ever considered that? I mean, because of the lockdown, maybe there's some ideas to move towards PPE, or was that something that wasn't even like on the plan for that?
We try to be flexible. So one of the biggest requirements was when mid-March I had to send my team home to work from home. We had all the empty office space, and I think a week later we actually had a 3D printing company moving in here that is printing since then as part of the COVID-19 manufacturing response plan for Canada. So they're printing all sorts of components for face shields, for ventilators, and for other PPE. So long story short, our laser has also do his job and return his investment. So we have been running a lot of PPE aside of our main production goals. So, like 1 day to 2 day a week, we also cutting face shields to accommodate the 3D printing parts. And we're making the standard size face shields. We can make in 11 to 12 hours. We can produce 1,200 units.
Oh wow! So I didn't even know that. So you guys are making PPE.
Well, it's not our core business, but again, as long as we can actually utilize our laser and we can do good and contribute to another local manufacturer with a component, why not, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and just to answer this question about adjusting the size of the frames, the 0.018 video, which is this video that I'm showing now, those are much easier to adjust than the 0.007 PPE product. You guys can find the artwork files on bit.ly/COVID-19 kit. So all these artwork files are available if you guys are looking to make. We have ear savers, face shields, a whole bunch of products on there for COVID. So this actual one is much easier to assemble and adjust. The reason for the 0.07 being more difficult is because it's so thin. It's like paper thin, so it's a little bit harder to adjust. So just wanted to answer that question. We have question for Felix from Nicole. She was actually our guest last week. Hi, Nicole. What's one of your favorite things you've made with your chopsticks? And is your home full of chopstick coasters and art? That's a good question.
So shockingly, there's almost nothing at home
Wow.
Or material, because so whenever I bring something home and I have a long day and I forget about a birthday or a gift, I usually, like, I'm the one who has to suffer, because then I take the stuff that I brought home myself, polish it up, and gift it again. So I literally, other than a few leftover coasters that got gifted back to me at events that people didn't know that I'm the chopstick guy, I actually don't have much chopstick stuff at home. But the favorite thing, the favorite thing we've made. So the cube is pretty cool, that we talked about earlier. But I think, so we're about to launch a new product, and I think it's going to be my favorite thing. Like, I don't want this to be a teaser or anything, but it's actually a shelving system that we are about to launch. And I feel like it's the first real product that we're offering that actually solves a problem. Because it's functional and it's beautifully designed. So Nicole, I'm gonna follow up with you the moment it's launched, and I'm gonna send you a link to that beautiful shelving system.
Nice.
Yeah, if I think Nicole's Instagram is reppin' my hood. I think that's her account. But Nicole, just reach out to Chop Value. They'll get it to Felix.
Yeah.
Very cool. We have a question from Sergio. I think Sergio is in Portugal, if I'm not mistaken. Hello, is there a checklist documents for maintenance? I guess it's a question for Stephen. Oh, sorry, Stephen, you're still on mute.
Sorry, it keeps on muting itself.
I keep muting you because we're getting echo.
You gotta invest in some.
There is a maintenance document.
Sorry,
go ahead, Stephen.
Well, there is a maintenance document in the manual for the machine, but that maintenance is not the same as service maintenance. This is preventative maintenance, mostly in terms of cleaning the optics and cleaning the lead screws and some of the mechanical components that is user accessible. But the checklist in terms of what the technicians use when they do a proper preventative maintenance Trotec certified service, that's a checklist that we use internally. But there is a maintenance guide for the mirrors in the manual of the Trotec,
which is under the About menu and the Help menu there in Job Control.
Yeah, that's it. Help About. You get two manuals in Job Control, one for the Job Control and the other manuals for the laser that you purchased. So the first one's laser manual and the second one Help, and in the Help file you'll have the manual for your machine.
And usually that's included on the disc, right?
40 to run about there.
Yeah, it's on the DVD disc.
Yeah. Does it automatically save it on your desktop when you load it, right? It automatically saves it on your desktop.
No, you got to go through Help and then save it.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you go to Help, About, you can get the information on the machine. But
Felix, I was going to ask if you do any of the design work yourself. I mean, since you started this business, or obviously, I'm assuming you have designers for you, but where do you guys come up with the concepts usually for this kind of stuff?
So I have to admit that the first designs, they're coming from me, but they're not they're not inventions. They're just following design requirements that we have kind of by necessity, because we're limited by size of the chopsticks. So instead of putting square tiles on your wall, I just made it hexagons. So there's no secret to it. And then we kind of developed our design guidelines where we try to follow like timeless, clean designs. And then to be honest, either technology, for example, when we introduced laser technology to the process, or clients, those are the two factors that bring the very, very best designs to our team, and then we evaluate if they if they have potential to be launched as products in our portfolio. Yeah,
I'm just showing the video of we were lucky enough, Felix sent us a couple of a couple of these chopstick. What do you guys call them? Like chopstick tiles?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we wanted to promote the partnership, so we made a couple of stuff ourselves. Obviously, this stuff isn't for sale; it's just in our showroom. But just the amazing things you can do with the design, and combining acrylic and these kind of plates.
Yeah, and thanks for doing that. It actually was a lot of fun to see the process and to also see your team coming up with their own ideas, because you obviously think different. You come from the technology perspective. We come from a material perspective. So it was a really cool process to see this come to life.
Yeah, no, I got to give it to Josephine. She did an awesome job with this stuff, for sure. This is actually a good question. David from Richmond Hill, Ontario. What is the best way to cut wood and paper without burn marks? So, Felix, I think as the expert woodcutter from us, I know you kind of mentioned about the process for treatment after the wood cutting, but I mean, there's no way to cut wood without burn marks on the edges, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what I understand?
From my perspective, with the laser that we have, that is accurate, but you can obviously improve it, or just optimize it that you have the least and the most clean burn marks, if per se, and then afterwards you just work with it and include it into your design. But maybe James, I know you have some advice on that, on how to do that better.
Yeah. Now, obviously, the amount of power you have in your laser is really gonna make a big difference in the edge quality and the burn amount of cutting. So if you picture a candle burning and you put your hand through it like that, you're not going to get any burn on your hand. When you go very slowly over the candle, well, it's time to go to the hospital. So what we always say is if you need to cut material and you need that edge to be much better than a dark edge, you need to really rise the tube strength up so that we can cut faster, because the faster you cut, the less heat is going to be produced on the actual wood, and the less heat, obviously, you're going to get a lot less burning. Like for instance, if you have an 80-watt Trotec and you're cutting maybe 3 millimeter plywood or something like that, you're just going to get kind of a toasted brown edge because you're able to go fast enough to get through that material very quickly. Whereas maybe if you have a 40-watt laser and you're trying to cut through half-inch plywood, it's gonna flame and burn, and it's gonna be like black on the edge because you have to go so slow. So speed is a big factor, and then going through in one pass is another big factor. The minute you go 2 passes, it's always going to turn black again. So high tube power is a big factor in that. Anybody else have anything?
Well, you want to make sure your hertz setting is set to 1,000. You want the highest peak power you can get out of that tube. So you want to make sure that the peak of the energy being delivered by the tube is at its maximum height, which is your maximum power. And if you run at 1,000, which is your lowest value, then that's going to give that to you. So that's certainly one thing. The only other thing I question too is when people say wood, are we talking solid wood? Are we talking like an MDF, or we're talking about, is there glue in it? Because a lot of times the burning isn't necessarily maybe the wood itself or the blackness, maybe the glue in it that may be happening. Air assist will certainly, help, the more air you can deliver into the point of contact. Maybe if it's thicker wood, maybe focusing to the middle of the material as opposed to the top. So your beam diameter or your geometry is more 90 degrees vertical as it goes through the material, so it's not doing something like this. James is right. I mean, many times I'll see somebody try to blow through a piece of wood that's way too thick for the wattage of the laser that they've got, and you can see this very, very easily in acrylic, where you'll get a lot of melting and the edge quality won't be very good. And we use the rule of 10 watts for every millimeter from a production standpoint, and that is a good rule to use. So if you want to cut 6 millimeter, then you should be running a 50 or 60 watt laser, in a production and type environment, and that will, as James said, will give you the appropriate power, for that thickness of material.
Yeah, and Mel, you. I think you've worked with nitrogen and lasers before, have you not?
Mm-hmm. Well, the nitrogen actually is more effect on the acrylic than wood, because it suppresses. Yeah, it cools down the. When you cut a piece of material, it doesn't stop burning, right? Even if the laser beam left the cut part of the material, it's still burning. So that suppresses that extra combustion, but wood, there's so many different variables when you're cutting wood. Depends on the grain pattern, like how old, how dry the wood is. So my advice is really, before you do anything on the wood, every wood, even the same type of wood but different batch, would have a different effect. So you need to do a test run before you actually cut that exact wood that you're going to use. So just do a couple of runs. And James is absolutely right. Don't a lot of people tend to, I will slow this down because it's not cutting through, right? If you have to do that, I think you're better off multi-passing it or cutting it twice than slowing the laser, because as soon as you're not getting a perpendicular cut, as soon as you slow that laser, the movement, you're actually getting an angle, because you start to burn more at the bottom, right? So, no, you're better off, like, honestly, investing on a high power laser than if your application is going to be mostly thick materials like acrylic and wood, you're better off having a more powerful laser to begin with.
Yeah, I was going to say Felix has a degree in wood making, right? Felix, first of all, what degree do you have? Because I know you have like some kind of a master's or something in wood production. And second question is, do you engrave or cut any kind of other wood than the chopstick bamboo? What do you recommend in terms of grain density or anything like that?
No, so my degree doesn't matter, Lev. But I guess I know wood fairly well. So what we notice is, what Mel just said is you need to understand the consistency of your wood species that you're cutting, because even the inconsistency in grain, or like the uniformity of the material through and through the thickness, makes a huge difference in how you adjust the laser, and you can really improve that, and you can get a feeling for that. And I have to agree that running it slow is usually not the answer. It's really you have to try to get it through with one pass or run double pass, but keep the pace up. So yeah, in our case, the material that we develop is it's a composite material, right? So we do have that percentage of resin of 6 to 8%. So luckily our material is very, very dense, so it has a very uniform property all the way from the top surface to the core. But that might be different when you would cut something like MDF or particle board or plywood that has a different density layer on the outside surfaces and has a lower density in the core because it's not required. Then you will notice that your laser behaves differently when you're cutting through.
Yeah, I only meant your degree because you're
you're
an expert. You're an expert in wood production. That's all.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, the other thing I think that Dave might have been alluding to too is the fact that we're talking about cutting, but he may be talking about the staining that happens on the top of the wood after you cut it, right? So, and you'll notice on the chop value video there is a mask on there to try to engage some of the burning residue that's.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, yeah, the other thing that you can do, I mean, I think we talked about this before, but if it's a raw piece of wood, a lot of times you are going to get some staining on the edge, and you're going to have to give that a light sand. If it's a finished piece of wood where you've got a urethane on there, a lot of times that that residue will wipe off with a damp cloth. So some people I've known over the years might take a raw piece of wood and then urethane it and then cut it, so then they don't have to sand it, right? Because then they might be able to go in and clean it after the fact, right? Because if you've got that urethane, that clear finish on there, there's no absorption by the wood, so then it's going to be removed a lot easier, with a damp cloth or something like that. So there are some things you need to consider too when you're on the surface that you're going to have issues with too, right? So, or if you're going to laser engrave something, you're going to get some residue on there. So,
Felix, do you guys put any kind of masking when you cut to avoid that kind of residue?
It's funny. I literally just made myself a note that I have to review the kind of masking paper I'm using, because that is actually also a difference maker on the quality, on how much reworking you have to do afterwards. When we do a standard engraving for our products, it doesn't matter if we do it before finishing or after finishing, by the way. We don't use masking paper because it's adjusted so well, and like there's no residual. But yeah, we currently run through a very large laser job, one I mentioned earlier, where we are running the laser 16 hours a day, and we do have masking paper on the surfaces that we afterwards remove, so that we don't have one-sided residuals. What I mean by one-sided residuals, if you have an exhaust system, it usually pulls the smoke in one direction, so you actually get the heat is also traveling in one direction, and then you often have kind of that one directed or one-sided residual on your panel, and that's what you can avoid with the masking paper.
That's interesting. We'll go to a few more questions, just moving away from wood. Oh, actually, I think one of those questions was for paper as well. Yeah. So not just wood, but paper. Any
Speed.
Recommendations? Sorry, go ahead.
High speed. I mean, that paper comes down to you've got to cut paper in high speed and single sheets at a time.
Yeah, keeping it
and
flat.
again, a high peak power, right?
Yeah.
Keeping it flat is very important.
Keeping it flat is key too. So maybe hold it down, or if you have a vacuum table, that's the best.
Yeah.
Okay, can you guys just elaborate on vacuum table for anybody that doesn't know?
Mike loves vacuum table.
Well,
what is a vacuum table? How does it work?
Well, vacuum table basically is a solid table with typically small holes in there, and what you're trying to do is have some drawdown on the table, so your material is perfectly flat, right? The drawback is the fact that you can have residue being created underneath the material, so you have to be careful with what you're cutting, that it's not generating a lot of residue, because that can contaminate whatever you're cutting, right? So we use the vacuum tables also to also set the cutting table on top of, like the grid table on certain machines, so that you get movement of the air smoke this way, not only the movement vertically or horizontally back towards the back of the machine, right? I don't know too many people that use the vacuum tables. Normally, if you have a half decent exhaust pulling down, then
Sorry, Mike, you were getting cut off
there.
there.
If your piece isn't filling up the full bed, if you're not filling up the whole bed with your material, you may want to put some masking down to fill the bed off, so that you do get a maximum draw. So hopefully everybody got that. So
yeah, I have a different experience with the vacuum table. I'm a huge fan of it. I love, like, just being able to, especially when you're working with paper, because we're talking about paper here. Just throwing a piece of paper down on the vacuum bed holds it down. I mean, it just as long as your suction is good, you're using a proper Quattro, like a 835 or something like this, or Atmos, of course. Then you just throw your paper down and it holds, and you don't have to worry about covering the rest of the grid up with something else, you can put that paper in any position on your bed, and it just holds.
What about if you're looking to engrave a fabric? Would you, like a cotton, would you use a vacuum table for that?
Yes. So
Okay.
I have actually a whole bunch of customers that cut fabric here in Vancouver. And one of the things they didn't like about the grid table is that when the suction was on, it's pulling the fabric into the holes. And also the grid table is a lot harder to clean than the vacuum table. And so they cut just through the vacuum table. They create a setting that's perfect to cut through the fabric, and then minimal flash afterwards, back up, from the bed. But then once they're done cutting maybe five sheets, they just take and wipe it down with some kind of a like toluene or something like this to clean it up, and then away they go again. Whereas with the grid table, it's so much harder to clean.
Perfect. I think, well, we just hit the 1 hour mark, so I think we'll end it there. Again, I want to give a warm thanks to Felix for being part of this this jam session. We definitely learned a lot. It's a very unique product. Check out their website, Chop Value. They're all over social media, Instagram, YouTube. Definitely, if you're looking to start a business, and they do offer franchising opportunities, so reach out to Chop Value about that. And again, thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you, guys. It was
Thank you.
fun to talk a little bit about your laser and share a bit more about our story.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. We'll see you
Thanks,
guys
Felix.
next week.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.